Alright, so now we're going to get started for real. So we're going to click New to create a new virtual machine. You can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it Kali Linux to keep it simple. You can leave it here, but Kali is Debian, and this will be a 64-bit installation of Linux, so this is what I would recommend as far as your settings go.
A lot of virtual machines can't do 64-bit out-of-the-box unless they modify their BIOS.
Really?
So, yeah, so do we have that issue? Did everybody see 64-bit? Yeah.
You're only seeing 32? Okay. That is very, very odd. I haven't heard of that. If you want to get with Ms. Smith, because I haven't heard of that issue. So yeah, those are. If you are having that weird 64-bit issue, I would recommend going back there and getting Ms. Smith to help you with that. I have never heard of that before, so that's news to me. All right, so these are recommended settings. We're going to click Continue. Now, however much RAM you want to give it. This is going to vary with your hardware. I'm just going to give it, let me give it like 8 gigs or something just to make this go fast. Alright, now we need a virtual hard disk. It's basically click through. So I just click Next on this, select the VDI image, dynamically allocate it. Alright, and so now we pick how much hard drive storage we want. If I'm going too fast, just ask me to slow down. These are very basic click-through settings, but I want to make sure everybody's tracking along the best they can if you're following along. So I'm going to give it about 30 gigs. Depending on what you're going to use this for is going to depend. A lot of these settings are depending on you and what you want to use this for. How much storage are you expecting to use on this virtual machine? How much performance do you need out of it? That's as far as your RAM goes. That's completely dependent on what your use case is going to be. I'm giving it the maximum minimum I can give it. So 6 gigs and it's like 6 or 8 gigs of RAM and like 30 to 50 gigs of hard drive storage as far as my machine specs go. But it really just depends on your hardware and what you're planning to do with this. As far as for these meetings, you're not going to be expected to store a lot of information, but you may want it to be slightly more performant than usual. If you normally give your virtual machine like no RAM, you should give it a little bit more. But other than that, that's all I can really recommend. So we're going to click Create on our new virtual hard drive. And now we have our image here. So now we actually have to install Kali on this. So what this did was basically create a virtual machine instance where you have a hard drive, RAM allocated, and all that kind of stuff. And now we actually need to install an operating system on it, just like we would install an operating system on a computer. So if you've ever installed Windows on a computer, it's really, really similar, only it looks slightly more scary. And it also is a lot faster. So we're going to highlight our box here and click Settings. And now we're presented with our Settings tab. We have our first tab over here is our System, where we can adjust the amount of RAM. We can adjust the processor. We give it 2 or 4 CPUs. I think I'm going to give it 2. You can do all kinds of neat things like acceleration, but you really don't need to do a whole lot here other than edit your RAM or your processor as far as this machine goes. Now, there are other virtual machines, and we'll deal with this case by case, where you will have to enable a setting like PAE/NX to get it to work, but we will deal with that as it comes. But for this, very, very simple. Give it as much power as you want to give it. That's how you do that. So that's your System tab. This is your display. You can give it more video memory if you want to. You really don't need to touch this unless you just want to. Keep in mind, this is taxing on your actual hardware, so you're using as much of your own hardware as you have. So whatever you allocate to this, the VM has access to use. And so it can only handle as much as your computer can handle. So this is storage. This is where we actually are going to hook up our ISO. So we have our empty CD drive controller here. And we actually need to install our ISO file, which is our CD, so to speak. And you do that by going over here and clicking this little CD icon and say choose optical disk. And now mine is right here. So you just find your ISO wherever you store it on your computer, click open, There you go. Now you're hooked. You hooked it up to your virtual machine, and now when you boot up your virtual machine, it'll actually start the Kali installer, which we'll do that in a second. But before we do that, I want to go over the network tab. So this is audio tab. We're not going to go over the tabs you can play with. This is needed, but this is just the basic stuff you need to get you started. But this one's kind of important. I would recommend setting your adapter to bridged. So by default, it'll be on NAT. Which is fine. It'll work 9 times out of 10. But there are certain scenarios where having a bridge adapter makes more sense. For example, if you are connected to a network and there are other machines on the network that you want to call back to your Kali machine, for example, there's a vulnerable machine on the network and you want to hack it. And you need it to call back to your machine to send you the information. We'll talk about more specifically what that is later. But you want that to happen. Well, if you're on an NAT adapter or an NAT network for your Virtualbox, you don't have a real IP address, so you can't call back to yourself. Now, there are other ways to do this, but really the easiest thing to do is set your adapter to bridged, so that gives your VM its own IP, so that way you can call back directly to the VM. Now, if you're working with VMs on your own machine, you can have them all on an NAT network and it'll work just fine. But if you're dealing with other machines outside of your personal machine, like on a network, and you're actually doing some activities, which we will have, I highly recommend setting it to bridge. So I'm going to set mine to bridge, and that takes care of that. That's all our settings. What's up? So I went to my settings, and I changed the network from NAT to bridged. Debian 64-bit. Cool. All right, so I'm going to give everybody just a second, and then we will actually start installing Kali. So this is the install process for any kind of Linux distribution you want to do ever. This is exactly how you'd go about doing it. Let me try. I don't think I can. I can try to full screen it. That's a little bit better. Yeah, I don't think I can. Hopefully it'll be better as we go through the install. Wish there was like a Zoom utility that I had. I'm sure there is, I just don't have one. It'd probably be smart of me to get. Alright. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started here. You just click Start. And it'll load us into a Virtualbox. I'm going to full screen this and pray that that doesn't make it worse, and it made it worse. So this is going to be very tiny, and I'm very sorry. It's going to be like this until we get everything installed, because we have to have our Virtualbox guest editions, which we'll talk about. And that'll make everything nice, big, full screen, pretty awesome. So you have a few options. So this is an ISO that is equipped with the ability to do live booting. So if you want to look into live CDs and USBs, YouTube is your friend. A lot of people actually prefer to install Kali on as a live USB, so none of the data persists. So if you're doing something weird, sketchy, and you don't want it to remain on the computer you do it on, you can have some cool like cleanup scripts or whatever. You can plug it in any computer you want, start up, have all your tools ready to go, and when you're done, unplug, leave, and all you had to do was have your USB on you. And so a lot of people like to do that. I prefer to actually have a physical machine dedicated to it, my quote-unquote burner laptop, and it's completely dedicated. It has Kali, doesn't do anything else but Kali and security-related stuff. It's really for competitions. I use this my competition laptop, so I have all my tools and scripts ready to go. But if you're not doing either of those, what you're going to probably be doing is something like we're doing today. So this is the most common setup people have, is they have their computer and they run Kali in a Virtualbox of some sort. So you can select live if you just want to boot into it and you don't want to install it. That is an option, but we are going to actually install it. So we're going to use the Graphical Install. So that's this option right here. You can use the normal install, it's the same thing, but if you like a GUI, that's what you use. So you just click enter, and it'll start loading into the Graphical Install. Alright, right, so it'll look like it's probably going to blow up, but it's not. It's fine. Just give it a second, and you should be presented with a screen like this where you can start setting up your language preferences and stuff like that. So I speak English. You can set it whatever you want. I'm going to go with English and click Continue. This is if you know how to install software, this is software. You're just installing software. It's so easy. And hopefully there are issues you can run into. So hopefully if we encounter any of those issues today, I can help you remedy those. I know one example is if you are installing it on a computer, you might encounter a problem where it can't load some drivers. And one of the weird solutions is that you wouldn't know unless you dug deep on Google for a minute is to, in the middle of the install process, unplug the USB, plug it back in, and hit go again, and then it works. And so there's some weird stuff like that you may have problems installing on a physical machine, but we shouldn't encounter any of that with the Virtualbox. But just so you know, that does exist. So we're going to click through all these settings, whichever settings you want to do. I'm sticking with the plain old America English, and then it'll start installing what it needs off of the Kali ISO. And you just wait. And if you have an issue, just let one of us know, and we'll hopefully have somebody come around and help. Oh, hey, I had the same error. Okay, great. So now we can walk through this together. So hopefully everybody got this error. So it. You're probably right about that, and so that makes this really, really weird. So maybe we should go through this. So I'm going to power off, and we'll step through this again. So we are on CSU's network, which means you have to register with your machine. So by using the bridge adapter, you have a brand new machine on the network that you'd have to therefore register. And so it doesn't actually have internet access, so it can't detect until you set that up. So for the purpose of the tutorial, we'll leave it on NAT. Later, you should go, or whenever you're in a scenario, you can switch this adapter at any point in time. It doesn't really matter. It's just a configuration setting that you have. But if you find that you need your own local IP for whatever activity you're doing, just switch the adapter before you boot up the machine. You'll be good to go. Unless you're on CSU's network. So yeah, switch it back to NAT, and we will try that again.
It worked this time.
Did it on NAT? Great. That is awesome. A lot of the activities that we're going to do, we will have our own local network, so that way we're not sending weird traffic all over CSU's student Wi-Fi, so you won't have that problem. You won't have internet, but you won't have that problem. So make sure you have everything ready to go before beating. So we're going to click back through everything and try again. So just wait, and hopefully we'll be good to go. All right, cool. So now you can call your machine whatever you want. My burner laptop's machine name is Little Buddy. He's my little buddy. So you can call it whatever you want. This guy's going to be poop because I'm going to throw him away later. All right, so you can leave domain name blank. This is not really relevant unless you know what the setting is for. If you don't know what the setting is for, you probably don't need it. We don't need it. All right, now you make your password. You make it whatever you want. Make it something strong. This is your root password. This is very important. You need to know this. I'm going to make it really crappy. Do not be like me. Now you configure whatever time zone you're in. We're in Eastern time, so we're going to click through.
Did you leave domain name blank?
Yes, leave domain name blank. All right, so I'm going to stop for a second and let everybody kind of get caught up if you're not already. This last part is all about disk partitioning. And in this case, because we're not doing anything fancy, we're going to use the first option. A lot of these options as far as this virtual machine setup are really just click, 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 just like you would install any other program. Just make sure you read what you're clicking first, so you don't blow up your computer or something like that. So yeah.
First option.
Yeah, it will be the first option if you want to go ahead and move on. Just letting everybody kind of catch up real quick. All right, so let's start. So when you get to this screen, Just use the first option. What it's going to do is automatically partition everything and use your entire disk that you set up earlier, that 30 gig or however many gig disk that you set up as far as your VDI goes. So just click continue. It's going to show you that disk so you can confirm that's it. This is indeed our VirtualBox hard disk, so hit continue. And we are going to do the recommended for new users, all files in one partition. Now, if you want to separate it up and do something fancy, you're more than welcome to, but if you don't know what you're doing, do this. This is just letting us know, hey, we're about to do it. You just keep going. Finish partitioning this. So it goes through multiple steps because you are formatting and overwriting a hard drive, so this is usually something that you can really mess up whatever computer you're using as far as your installation of an operating system goes. So if you're going to like dual boot or something, this would be very, very, very important so you don't wipe your main OS. But in this case, we're good to go. It was just saying, hey, you're sure, you're sure, you're sure. And this is giving us a logic, or how it's going to partition the disk and letting us know where everything is and all that kind of stuff. So we're good to go. Say finish partitioning, write changes to disk. It's going to ask us one more time. We're going to say yes. Make sure you explicitly say yes. If you say no, it's going to go back and make you do it again. So explicitly say yes. Hit continue.
What is it asking again?
It is asking you to confirm that you would like it to partition your hard drive. So it's going to override all the files and write the operating system to it. So this is it's not your main hard drive on your computer if you're using VirtualBox. It's the VirtualBox hard drive you set up and gave memory earlier.
Yeah.
So this will probably take a minute. Hopefully it won't take too long. So once we get this installed, it'll reboot and it will. I think this is the last step anyway. It may not be the last step. I think you got to configure one more thing. I could be wrong, but once it is installed, we are going to install the VirtualBox guest editions, which will let everything be nice, full screen, and pretty, just like you were using your normal computer. There may be a problem with that, so I foresee there being a problem with that because CSU actually blocks all of Kali Linux repos except for one that is hosted by another .edu domain. So hopefully that .edu domain repo has the VirtualBox package we need. You need some help? Yeah. All right, we're about halfway there. So remember, if you aren't able to successfully install Kali by the end of this meeting, that is okay. This will be on the internet for you to go and walk through again. There are also plenty of other resources out here to help resolve issues you're having. If you're having a very specific issue that you did not see us encounter here, do the research and try to figure out. There are a lot of niche case things that can occur while installing any Linux operating system. Yes, I will post the link to it in Discord. In fact, we will, when you send out the meeting minutes, I will hopefully have this uploaded already. I'll probably try to upload this at the end of the meeting. We do have a black box side of YouTube, and that's where it'll be posted, but I will post out links everywhere relevant as far as the club communication goes.
Which partition did you select? Did you say use not the entire book, the second one?
No, use the entire, the guided whole disk. Yes, use that one. No problem. All right, so mine finally finished. When it finishes, you'll be here to configure the package manager. This is probably where things are going to get kind of wonky because, like I just said, CSU blocks a lot of Kali repos. And so we're kind of left with this, I think it's Duke, has a repo or something like that. Hopefully, everything goes smoothly. If not, I'm going to have to attach to my mobile hotspot and finish the tutorial just for the sake of having this available for you guys to try when you get home. But hopefully it'll work. Hopefully we won't have any problems. All right, so we're going to say, yes, this is cool. We can use the default options. Hit continue. You can leave this blank. This is HTTP proxy. We don't have one. Leave it alone. Hit continue. And now it's going to try to configure everything. And hopefully not fail. I've never used their pre-built VMs. They may be great. They may be better than doing this. So I would. Have you used them? Is it?
So I wasn't sure what the difference would be between the two.
No, I mean, if theirs works great and it's the same thing, then
I was like,
I didn't even know that was there. I don't think so. If it's the latest release, I wouldn't think it'd be any different. But definitely look and make sure, but I don't think it's any different. So apparently they have, OffSec has pre-made VMs, which I did not know, and that would have been way better. But this is still, yeah, we'll post it as well, because if you need something quick, dirty setup to participate in meetings if we're using something you don't have, or you're not understanding something and you want to follow along one-to-one, you will need Kali, because I will be using Kali personally. But this is still good because this is how you install virtual machines in general.
Does he have solid close access in mirror?
Yours did?
Yeah.
Okay, mine apparently got it successfully, so try again. And if it still doesn't work, then I don't know. Because that's more about CSU's internet than it is about Kali itself. But if you do successfully install, it'll ask you to, if you want to install Grub on the master boot record. Grub is an awesome boot management tool that's pretty much on every Linux distribution ever. This is the default option. I would recommend leaving it there unless you know what you want to do otherwise. So we're just going to leave it there. So install Grub on the master boot record. So this is just saying, hey, we're installing the master boot record of what hard disk? Well, we only have one hard disk, and that's the Virtualbox hard disk. So we're going to install it there. So select whatever your hard disk is, hit continue, and it'll install Grub on there. And what Grub will pop up once you boot in, you'll actually see it, and it'll ask you if you want to just boot straight to the machine, if you want to do another option, like if you forget your password, that's a way to reset your root password and do a couple other configurations. If you run like driver issues or you break something, that's a good way to drop into a root terminal of some sort, or do some other things. So it's super, super useful if you ever, especially if you encounter problems. Otherwise, it's just an annoying boot screen that you click through every time you boot up. All right, so installation is complete. So now we can hit continue and we'll reboot, but I'll just wait a second for everybody else if we're having issues. I imagine some people are still having either network issues or aren't quite where we're at yet because they're still installing the OS on their main partition. So give everybody just a second. So in the future, hopefully we won't have to install anything funky. Most of the time I'll already be running the software that you need, or even the target machine that we're going after. I'll be running it and hosting it on a router for everybody to access at once. So the only thing you'll need is this, and so that's why this is the most important. If you don't have Kali or another platform or software of your choice to participate in the activities, you're going to have a bad time. So that's why we're doing this, to get everybody kind of on the same page and up to speed as far as that goes. These never go well, so. All right, so for sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. Hopefully you guys are a little bit further along. It's going to finish up the installation, reboot into Kali, and we'll go from there. I tried doing that on my main machine. I tried spoofing my MAC address on my other machine, and it actually didn't get that to work, which I thought was weird because I've heard that working on the Virtualbox thing. So maybe it's just because it's a Virtualbox, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to. All right, so when Kali boots up, this is what you will see every time from now on. This is the Grub that we were talking about. So you have your advanced options if you have to do some configurations, but by default, it'll be on top of boot into Kali Linux. So just hit enter, and it'll boot right in. Alright, so this is how it looks if you want a full screen. We're going to fix this. This is gross. I don't like this. Alright, so your username by default is root. You are the root user. On every Linux machine ever, you have a root user. This is your root user. That's the only user we've set up. So that's when you made the password earlier, The password you made that for was the root user. Now you can make other users if you want to. You can set up sudoers and all that kind of stuff. But I find for a lot of things that you do on Kali, staying as root tends to be more beneficial. But there are security benefits to going ahead and set up your sudos and all that kind of stuff. However, if you're going to do all that kind of stuff with the intention, now if you want to do it just for your own personal security, that's fine. But if you're doing it with the intention of running Kali Linux as your daily operating system, do not do that. Running Kali Linux as your daily operating system is a terrible idea. Please do not do that. Use whatever else you want to use. This is not for you to use with your CSU email and check all your Gmail and all that kind of stuff, or use for work or any kind of stuff. That's not what this is for. These have rolling releases for one, so software is always getting updated. If something you use all the time breaks, you gotta wait until the next release till they fix it. And they do come out frequently, which is good. But and that also means security updates come out frequently for this, which is also good. But you are running an operating system with a lot of tools dedicated to hacking. If there are some default services that you've played with that you've had running while you were hacking stuff that you don't know exactly how they work still because you're learning, and they didn't turn off, and you're at your work network using this as your daily operating system and it's just sending out random scanning packets, you could go to jail. So please do not use this as your daily operating system. That's the only disclaimer I'm going to give. There are too many avenues for it to fail as your daily operating system. Only use it for security purposes, and please no malicious purposes. We're ethical. Do your best. Stay out of trouble. But that's the disclaimer. Let's log in. So we are root. Type root. Hit next. Whatever password you made, sign in, just like you would on any computer. And it'll sign you in and hopefully be nice and pretty. So this is Kali Linux. Now we're going to fix the screen issue, like I said. So before we do anything else, we're going to open a terminal, and hopefully I can make this bigger. Let's see if I can do like a Control Plus. Nope. That didn't make life better. I'm sure there is a way to do this, and I'm just an idiot. So we want to do. Hey, why didn't that not work when I did Control? Please, how about now? No, still no. Why do you hate me? All right, so we're gonna do this manually. All right, so that should be plenty big. All right, so now I got my cheat sheet here. We're going to run a couple commands. So when you want to update software on Linux, or a Debian-based distribution to be more specific, we are on Debian as our base operating system. You use what's called apt or aptitude. I don't think aptitude's been named, but anyway. So apt-get is the command you'll use, and it is an awesome package manager. It makes life really easy. If you ever want to install software, you can say apt-get, name software here, enter, install it. Now there's other ways to install packages on Debian. I'm not really going to go over those. You should probably learn how to do those on your own. That's kind of important. But we're going to update our packages, so we do that by typing apt-get update and hit enter, and it will connect, and now you'll see the whole big deal where it's going to say no to 99.9% of the repos, but it's going to connect to the Duke EDU to get our packages. So that's the only repo we have access to right now. If you do this on a different network anywhere else, you will get all the full list of repos and all the software, and it'll be great. So I recommend re-updating when you go home today to get all the packages and all the fresh installs. But we're working with what we got right now. So we want to do an apt-get, and so that doesn't update your software. That just updates the repos. If you want to upgrade your software, you need to do an apt-get upgrade like that. Hit enter. We're not going to do that because that may take too long. And apt-get dist-upgrade after that to upgrade the main rolling distribution if you want to do that as well. But run both of those commands to fully update your system, and you will be good to go. But like I said, we just wanted to update our repos to get a fresh list, and we're going to install the Virtualbox guest editions here. So you say apt-get install, Virtualbox guest x11. That's the name of the package. Type that in, hit enter, and this hates me. Okay, that's great. Don't know why it's doing that. Why? What the hell else is using this?
Is it X11 or XLL?
It's X11.
Thank
Kill. Okay, so let's see. Okay, cool. Maybe that's all let's add. So try this again. There we go. So it's going to ask if we want to install this. It's going to install any dependencies as well. So if the software installing depends on other software, the package managers are great. It goes say, hey, you need this, this, and this. I got you. Don't worry about it. So you want to continue with software install? Hit yes. And then it's going to attempt to get it. And hopefully all the dependencies and packages we need can be found from Duke. Please, Duke, help us. And then if that works, we'll be able to reboot and have our full screen Kali Linux and be good to go. And then we'll go over some basic Linux commands that you need to know as far as navigating around the terminal. But we won't go too deep into that because, like I said, it's a lot. But it's something that you really do need to dive into on your own. But I do want to get you guys started somewhere. All right, so we're done installing our guest editions. Now we can reboot. So you can exit out of your terminal. And you can just type, or you can just hit the power button, say restart. And it will restart and hopefully appear in full screen. I don't know if the login still appears in full screen or not, but I know after you log in it should be for sure. Alright, so we are still having some weird stuff going on. If you encounter the weird stuff that's going on like I do, I would recommend exiting out and powering off the machine. So that's a process was hanging of some sort during a reboot. I know for a fact that it couldn't be that important because I just installed everything. Do be careful of all that kind of stuff though, but this should be perfectly fine. If I break it, I'm going to feel like an idiot, but that's okay. So yeah, so like I said, you'll see this every time. Just load in. It'll be good to go. I think if you don't press anything after a certain amount of time, it'll automatically load you in. So, gonna boot in. Hopefully be nice and happy. Alright, so it doesn't look full screen right now, but I'm pretty sure once we are logged in, that will fix. And it did not. That is very sad. I'm very upset. Let's try this. Nope. Wow. Okay, so now I look like an idiot. It's okay. Well, you do have the Kali virtual machine set up. Let's see, Kali full screen. So I'm gonna do a quick Google and see if I can fix myself. And it's very possible that this package is just very much out of date since it's from another thing. That's how you do it. Yeah. So this is all I should have had to do, and that's what we did. So I would recommend doing the same thing again when you get to a better internet connection. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and try that on a better internet connection one more time. And hope it works. And if it doesn't work, then we'll move on because it's not that important. Alright, so we're going to try this again. Okay. Please don't do this to me. Okay, well, if you're having some other problems, I'm sorry. But we're going to move along with the actual Linux tutorial here to kind of get everybody found it. If you are still having issues, I'll probably go through this, my Virtualbox, and resolve the issues, and I'll post some commands that you can just type in and fix everything if you continue to experience these issues when you get home. So that way nobody is lost. But if you do continue to experience issues, the best advice I have is to delete this virtual machine and do a complete reinstall on a network that is not CSUs. And then everything should go swimmingly. Should. That is my recommendation, but I will supply some fixes for this if I find them. Okay, so now we're going to go over some Linux 101. If you were unsuccessful in getting Linux installed, but you have a Mac, you can also open the terminal and follow along in your Mac terminal. This will work. This is very basic commands. They are universal across both of those operating systems. Otherwise, open up your Kali terminal and follow along. So when you are dropped into a terminal, you are actually, it's just another way to kind of browse your file system and execute commands. It's like, before we had graphical interfaces, we had terminal green screens and all that kind of stuff. In fact, if you've taken assembly or anything like that and have been on a mainframe, that's what we had, and that's all we had. When Linux was first created, you were dropped into a terminal, and that's how you did things. And so I like to equate it to a text way of browsing through like a file browser, like your file manager, but it's really a lot more than that. But for beginners, it's a really good way to visualize things because I can open a terminal and then open my file browser and then show you things that are happening at the same time. So if I run a command called ls, this command lists everything in the current directory that you are in. So if I type ls and hit enter, it's going to show me, okay, there's documents, music, templates, videos, blah, blah, blah. That looks a lot like this, right? That's because that's where we are, just in terms of the terminal. And so it's very one-to-one in that aspect, so that's why I kind of make that equation. But like I said, the terminal really is a lot more than that because you can do all of your computer's functionality from the terminal the same way you can from the graphical user interface. In fact, you can do, a lot of times you can do more and you can do it faster. So it's very, very powerful. So that's ls. That's basically, hey, I'm here. This is where I'm at. Great. If I want to go somewhere else, for example, if I want to go to the documents folder, I need to type cd, which stands for change directory. So these are directories. How do I know these are directories, though? Well, I kind of don't. They're highlighted blue, so in Kali, that's one way for you to know the Kali terminal is kind of helpful there. But if you want to know, you need to add some arguments to the ls command. So you can pass arguments to a lot of different terminal commands. And for ls, one is called ls-la. And what this will do is list, in my big font, it'll list everything in the directory, even hidden files, and show you their permissions and what kinds of what kind of file they are, or it should. Yeah. So these are directories. Anything in blue is a directory, and so it gives you all the information about where you are. So if you need more details about where you're at, that's one way to do it. There are a lot of arguments for ls, and you can type ls dash or I don't know. It's probably ls-help. Yeah, ls-help. And it will give you all the help information, all the different arguments for ls that you could use, what they are, what they do, and all that kind of stuff. So play around with that. There's a lot of commands in terminal and a lot of different programs, and arguments can really, really be helpful. So I would recommend playing around with the arguments and seeing what they do. Yes, you can also do a man page. So almost every program has a man page. So if you type man ls, it'll give you the man page, and it'll tell you all about what the command actually is. So if my description of ls wasn't good enough for you, here's the actual description from the developers about what ls is all about, all the arguments. In fact, this is a lot better than doing the help. Help is a quick view. This is a fully extensive man page about this. So yeah, man pages are awesome. You can do that pretty much like I did man ls. I can do man cd. Or no, I can't, because I think CD is way too simple. But there are a lot of programs that have man pages, and they are really, really helpful. Kind of long, kind of intimidating, but if you actually read them and can understand what's going on in them, they are super, super helpful. So yeah, anyway, so that's ls. So we wanted to go to the desktop. So like I said, CD is change directory. So we want to see, or we want to go to documents. So we want to go to documents, So type documents. All right, well now we're in documents. So let's see what's in documents. There's nothing in documents. So I can make something in documents if I want to. I can make a directory. And how I do that is the command mkdir, make directory. Some of these are kind of self-explanatory. There are wackier commands that don't make sense why they're called that and do something just completely arbitrary that's useful, but like it's like, I don't know, I can't think of a good example. Touch is a good one. Touch allows you to make a file where you are, but the word touch isn't really indicative of that at all. So that's one example. But so we want to make a directory. We want to call it hello. And so if we hit enter on this, and then now we type ls, we can see our directory hello is there. But if we kind of give a visual view, if we go to documents, there's our hello directory. How do you go to your file browser here? In Kali over to the side, there should be this little files folder. Should open up the file browser. So I'm going to do one more, or I'm going to do two more commands, and then I'm going to kind of hand it off to you guys to figure it out on your own. Because, like I said, this is one thing that you do have to do on your own time. So I'm going to do that touch command to make a file. So touch hello.txt. So I'm going to make a text file. It's going to be a blank, empty file. It's not going to have anything in it, and it should write it to the directory we're in now. So if we hit enter, and then we type ls, we can see our hello.txt. Likewise, we go visit this, we can do that. Now, we can always open this. If we double click this, it'll open it in Kali's default text editor. It's a blank text file, that's great. But what if we want to edit that in terminal? Well, there's a lot of different ways to do that, and there's a lot of different tools. We have Vim, Emacs, Nano. You could echo out into the file if you wanted to. There's lots of different ways to do this. I recommend, as a beginner, Nano because it's easy to use and it's pretty quick. But if you want to do some more heavy-duty stuff, Vim is really awesome as well. But it has a much bigger learning curve than Nano does. So if you want to edit this file, Nano is a text editor that is installed in the command line by default. You can type Nano in the name of the text file, and it will open up an editor. And so now I can write, hey everyone. And I can save this file. Now the way you save in Nano and close out of the file is you hit Control-X, and then it'll ask you if you want to save the file. Control-X. And it'll ask you if you want to save the file, and you just type Y, and hit Enter. And it's going to ask you if you want to change this and make it a new file. You could edit this, but we want to overwrite this file. And so after we hit yes, after we type Y, we want to hit Enter again, and now we can see that. If we open this in our GUI text editor here, there it is. Another way to read text out of the file is a command called cat. And this is going to be very, very useful, especially in environments where you just need a quick look at text and you're just in the terminal environment and you just, hey, I need to cat out this one-line log or whatever there is. This is very useful. I use this a lot. Especially in competitions, there's going to be like a flag file, and you just cat out the file. It's very, very simple, very, very fundamental, but very, very useful. So if we cat, it's going to print out the text of the text file right there in the terminal for us to see. So the last thing I'm going to do is talk about we created files and we created directories. We're going to remove files and directories. The way you remove files is by typing rn for remove, and then the name of the file we want to do. So. And now if we ls, that file's gone. If we want to remove directory, just like we did mkdir for make directory, we do rmdir for remove directory, and we can remove hello. And everything's gone, the folder's empty, and there you go. So some topics I'm going to advise looking into as far as using a terminal is going to be learning how to use SSH, learning how to work with, or learning how to search through files, and that may be a noob's lesson we go over, is how to grep through files and find stuff quickly, especially large text files, and a couple other things. But like there are a lot of concepts that you're going to use with the terminal that require more knowledge than just terminal. So SSH is for remotely connecting to other computers. It's something I highly recommend you learn how to do, because that's how you get into your, once you've compromised your victim machine and you've set up SSH, you don't want to exploit the machine anymore. You want to harden it, lock it down, and make sure they can't get it back. And so you need legitimate access at that point. And SSH is one of the ways you do that. And so you need to learn that, but that's a lot more goes into that than just a terminal command. That's remote access of a machine. So I would advise learning that. We're not really going to go over a lot of details as far as concepts like that goes, but we are going to use them. So you're probably going to be just fine as you follow along, but once we do start doing things like King of the Hill competitions, or you want to get into a machine while we're doing a hands-on activity, but you don't know how to SSH and all that kind of stuff, you're gonna have a hard time without looking that stuff up. So all that kind of stuff I would highly recommend looking up. But as far as actually using Kali, you have it now. Feel free to play with it. There's a lot of tools. Keep in mind, there's a lot of tools used for exploiting computers. So if you're just clicking around and you don't know quite what you're doing and you set off something, be very, very careful. But other than that, it's just like using a computer. You have Firefox, you can browse the web, file browser. There's notepads, documents, settings. You can customize it how you want. There's a lot of tools. Next week, we will be going over Nmap. We will be going over NetDiscover, which is another tool using the terminal. We will be going over Searchsploit, which is an awesome command line utility for searching for exploits to use against your targets. And we will be going over Metasploit just a little bit. So next week's going to be a very light introduction to all that kind of stuff, and we're actually going to hack our first machine, doing all that kind of stuff. And then the week after, we're going to do a more back and forth. I say the week after, but the next meeting after the next meeting, we're going to do something a little bit more difficult, using what we've learned from the previous meeting.
When did you say we're going to start the next thing?
When are we going to start the next thing, or what are we doing?
Which day?
Oh, which day? It'll be 2 weeks from now. So it'll be Fridays at 6 p.m.
Do you have like a sheet or anything, like instructions of how you do all this? How you do this?
Yeah, this I've screen recorded all this, and I'm going to upload it and send that out. Yeah, I'll send that out. So we will have this.
Just the week after next, or
So not next Friday, but the Friday after.
the second meeting that we're having after the next one.
Mhm.
What is it gonna be involved in that?
So not the next meeting, but the meeting after that will be using the skills that we learned at the first meeting to get into a brand new machine. So the first meeting is going to be what I think is everybody's baby's first hack. You exploit what's called MSO 8067. We're going to do it manually, and then we're going to do it using Metasploit, just to get everybody familiar with that. And you say, hey, I've hacked my first computer. But it's really the very first, most simple thing that you can do, and I think everybody does it. It feels great when you do it because it's a big, scary remote code execution vulnerability. It's a lot of fun. And then after we've learned that, we're going to move on to something a little bit more difficult, but applying those same skills and seeing how they work. So that's what's going on there. So yeah, I'm done. You guys are free to leave. I'm probably going to leave soon, so cool. Thanks, everybody. As promised, any errors we encountered, I was going to come home and fix, so here we are. Basically, when we ran this, this command was supposed to install the Virtualbox guest editions and give us a nice, pretty full screen. Well, when we did that on campus, that didn't really work out so well. So now I'm on a different internet connection. Vi's probably your home internet or something. I'm on my home internet. And we're going to fix this. So we're going to fix this hopefully by updating our sources list. So we talked a little bit about the package manager, apt, and apt pulls its sources from it pulls its repositories where the software is stored from a sources file. Sometimes during your Kali installation, the source file might break. Now, actually, when I came home to check this, my sources file was not broken, which was very strange. When I had switched to my hotspot internet connection, it still didn't load up all the correct sources. But when I came home, it did. But just in case, we're going to check this anyway. So simply Googling for Kali sources will take you to the official Kali docs, and this is the repo that needs to be in that sources list file. Alternatively, you can just obviously type it in manually from this video. I might put any commands in the description as well. But yeah, so I'm going to show you where that file is located. So if you open up your files, your file manager, and go to this Other Locations tab, and then click Computer, it's going to take you to your I guess your root directory is what this is, and you're going to want to go to etc and apt. You should see a folder called apt. And then in there's this file called sources.list. You may have to right click and say open with another application and select a text editor, but thankfully mine is already set to automatically open with text editor, so you can double click it. And this is kind of what yours should look like. I believe you can actually delete these 2 lines if you want to, but otherwise what's really important here is that this is your sources. This is what's in your sources file. So this is what we got from here. Like I said, when I opened mine, it was already that way, which is good. That means you shouldn't have to do anything as far as this is concerned. But if yours doesn't look like this, make it look like this, because this is correct. This will have all your sources set up. But hopefully you don't have any weird, complicated problems like that. But if you do, this is how you fix it. All right. So what we're going to want to do next then is update everything. So we're going to run another apt-get update. This is going to update our sources. As you can see, it's pulling from the main repo. It seems to be working okay. Sometimes, in a default Kali install, this should be how this works. I know that it looked a little weird to me at first because on my custom Kali install that I have a couple more repos that I'm pulling from. But this should work for you. Hopefully everything is good. So now what you're going to want to do is, like we talked about before, run an apt-get upgrade. And of course we're having this weird issue that we had before where that process is getting locked up, and I'm not really sure why that happened. This is not a normal thing. Never really experienced that before, so I'm just gonna go on with it. If you do experience that issue, you can either just reboot your machine, or if you're familiar with how to kill processes, you can do what I just did and kill that process. I'm really not sure why it's acting funny like that. But you run an apt-get upgrade, hit yes. This is going to take a minute and upgrade everything. And honestly, this should be enough, because if you've already installed the Virtualbox guest editions like we did during the meeting, this will upgrade anything that we did not have before, including those guest editions, to put on the latest version that'll be compatible. So hopefully that is the case, but just to be sure, I'm going to show you guys how to remove those guest editions, and we're going to completely reinstall them to make sure they work, and hopefully when we reboot we won't have the same embarrassing issue we did before. So give this a minute. Alright, so it took a minute, probably took you a minute unless your internet connection's way faster than mine, but now this is showing us our change logs. You can read these if you want to, but if not, you can just hit Q and it will start setting up everything. And this may take another couple minutes or so, but usually it doesn't take nearly as long as the actual install. Alright, so if that took you as long as it took me, you'll understand why I fast forwarded through that section of the video. Alright, so we have successfully upgraded all the packages on our system. There are a couple more things we're going to do to finish the updates, but it's important that whenever you install a fresh distribution of any operating system that you do the needed updates and patching. So the way this is a little bit different if you're coming from Windows is that normally Windows updates are the only thing managed by the operating system, but in this case we have a package manager that not only manages core OS updates and kernel updates, but also if you download things through the package manager such as Firefox or a text editor or whatever software that you want to use that you download through the repository, it's also managed by the package manager. And so updates of your software are managed by the package manager just like updates of the operating system are. Whereas on Windows you may be more used to the software handling its own updates if it even does that. There's a lot of software you have to go and manually update it if it's out of date. But in Linux environments or any environment with a package manager, even on Mac OS if you use a package manager for stuff like Mac ports or something, it's all managed by the package manager. Mac OS is similar to Windows to some extent, but the difference being that if you download apps from the App Store is kind of like a package manager that will update the apps, while the core operating system updates are actually also now handled by the App Store. So everything's through the App Store. So it's a little bit similar there. But whenever you install, especially a fresh Linux distribution or really any operating system, it's wise to go through the updating process. And on Debian-based distributions like Kali, Ubuntu, Linux Mint, this is how you go about doing that. So that was the first step. And what I like, you don't have to do this, but what I like to do after running an apt-get update or apt-get upgrade or an apt-get dist-upgrade is after each one I like to do an apt-get autoremove, and this will remove any leftover packages. So here's like a lot of packages that are not going to be used, so we'll just go ahead and get rid of those so they don't take up space. And now we'll do an apt-get auto clean, which will clean up things for us. So get rid of all those old references. Now we've upgraded the base packages, but now we want to do an apt-get dist upgrade, which does a more thorough upgrade. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of details, but basically, if you notice, for example, let me abort that. I said no. If I run an apt-get upgrade, you'll see that there are no upgraded, no newly installed, no removed, but there were 222 packages not upgraded. That's because they weren't part of the normal upgrade process. They're part of this apt-get dist upgrade process. So we want to upgrade all those packages. So see, we need 222 upgraded, 154 newly installed, 16 to remove. And so this is going to give us a bigger upgrade. So we're going to run this and get us fully up to date. Hopefully this won't take as long as the other one. Alright, so like I said, you can read through these change logs if you want to. I don't really care. If you don't want to read through them, just hit Q. And it's going to start the setup. So sometimes you will be prompted like this for certain configurations. So for example, this is the Wireshark configuration. You can choose exactly how you want to configure this based on what you want your setup to be. In my case, this is basically asking, should non-super users be able to use Wiresharks to capture packets? In my case, I'm going to say no, because I'm never going to have another super user on this machine. So if you plan to be the only user on your machine at all times, you probably hit no. But if you do want to have maybe like a guest user or a low privilege user on your machine for whatever reason, you can hit yes and go from there. But I'm going to hit no and move on. Alright, so sometimes you'll encounter a situation like this where it'll ask you if you want to keep your currently maintained version or something like that. Almost always, unless you have specifically specified that almost always, unless you have a specific reason why you want to keep your currently installed version, I would always choose to install the package maintainers version. So you can just type yes and go on. Alright, cool. So we're fully upgraded now. All our software is up to date. We've been through the process. Now we're going to run the same cleanup commands I did before. So apt-get auto-remove to remove anything we don't need. This may take a second as well. Then we'll run our apt-get auto-clean. Alright, cool. So type in clear to kind of clear up everything. So now really you could just reboot the machine and it should work. However, I'm going to teach you guys, just as a reference for uninstalling software, the same way you install software. There's a couple ways to do that. I almost always do an apt-get purge if I know for a fact I'm getting rid of it. And so that will completely clear everything out. But you can alternatively, the easy way to do this is apt-get remove, and we want to remove Virtualbox guest x11. And that'll remove it for us. We're actually going to reinstall it as well. But if you want to be sure something is gone from the system, you can do an apt-get purge, and I'll show that as well. So apt-get purge. And then this will completely get rid of it, and so we can reinstall it. A little pro tip, whenever you're typing a command, if you want to autocomplete something, you can press tab. So if I want to go to my documents, I can say cd and start typing documents, and so I type D, but then I can say start just typing DOC and then hit tab and it'll autocomplete it for me. Same thing with like downloads. So say I didn't want to go to documents, but I want to go to downloads. If you double tap tab, based on what you have in the terminal, it will show you what your options are. So if I start typing W and then hit tab, it autocompletes. So that's kind of useful when you're typing all these long terminal commands. And we can use that here. So we can say apt-get install. Now that we've updated everything, we want to install the Virtualbox. Actually, I don't think it'll work here because it doesn't know what we're trying to type like it did before. But, so I'm a liar. So apt-get install Virtualbox guest x11 to reinstall those guest editions that we just installed. And now we should be able to reboot and everything should be happy. Alternatively, in the future, if you wish to not set up your Kali virtual image by hand, there are on Offensive Security website, just like we talked about in the meeting, there are some pre-made VMs. I have not used these. I don't know what the differences are. I imagine they are completely normal as far as compared to what we have set up now. So yeah, you can do that instead of setting it up by hand. But this is good experience for you setting up virtual boxes in general, because you will need to know how to do that on your own. So yeah. At this point, you can now either reboot the machine by hitting the power button over here in your menu options and rebooting, or you can simply type reboot in the terminal and it will reboot the machine. Now, hopefully, when we boot back up, our whole full screen issue will be fixed and we can actually use Kali in a more visually appealing manner. Regardless, though, even if it doesn't work for some reason, you'll still be able to use this. It'll be nice and up to date, but it looks like it worked. Perfect. So now it's nice and full screen. You can log in, and everything is awesome. So perfect. This is what it should look like. If it didn't work for you, the only advice I can really give you is to start from scratch again, like we did all the way from the beginning of the video, and then when you get to here, resolve everything appropriately. But hopefully if you set it up from scratch and you're on your own internet connection that doesn't have any weird restrictions like the school's does, you won't have any problems and everything will run perfect. But yeah, so next meeting we will be talking about a couple of new tools. So if you want to go ahead and get started playing around, we will be talking about Nmap, also ZenMap in that same context. They're the same program, one's just a GUI version, one's a command line version, but pretty much the same thing. We'll be talking about those two. They are by default installed on Kali Linux, so you can go ahead and play with those. We'll be talking about the Metasploit framework. We may talk about Armitage, but probably not. Probably just going to talk about the Metasploit framework, and we'll do Armitage another day. We're going to talk about NetDiscover. We're going to talk about SearchSploit, which is an awesome utility. And we're going to talk about MSF Venom is another command line utility we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about reverse shells and bind shells. So it's in your best interest to go ahead and start doing the research on these things, so that way it won't feel overwhelming. Because these are going to be very fast-paced, hands-on activities. Because I'm trying to give a broad enough taste on a skill set that's available to everybody. So I don't expect everyone to know everything and be able to follow along perfectly. That's why we're making these screen recorded videos for you to come back and reference. But you are going to be expected to do these things on your own if you actually are trying to learn this kind of stuff. This isn't going to be, oh, plug and chug and now I'm a hacker. It's not how any of this works. So if you're still stuck on the Linux basics, I know I went over a few simple commands in the terminal. Just get familiar with using the operating system. Do some stuff on it. Browse the web. Use a couple of the tools. Maybe like you wonder what this Faraday ID is. Do some research. Or maybe you want to know what BFXSS framework is. Stuff like that. Also get familiar with the terminal. Maybe install some software. Say you're interested in Tor or something like that. Try installing Tor. It doesn't really matter. But maybe you want to install a different browser. You don't like Firefox ESR. Try that out. Get familiar with your Linux fundamentals, because not only will I not be teaching any more Linux. We are, as a security organization, we're not here to teach Linux, we're here to teach security stuff. I'm just doing this as a very foundational point to point new members to who are not familiar with any of this stuff, because we don't want to exclude those people, but at the same time, we're not a Linux club, we're a security club. So I want to go ahead and start teaching everybody how to do the cool security stuff. But you really do need these fundamentals before you can start. And if you want to follow along closely, you need the fundamentals of Kali, because we will be using Kali a lot. But yeah, so hopefully this was very helpful to you guys. I hope it wasn't too much of a pain. We'll be having our next meeting on Friday at 6 p.m. Not next Friday, but the following Friday, which is the let me look at my calendar here, which is the 22nd. So on the 22nd at 6 p.m. we'll have our next meeting where we will go over all those utilities that I talk about, and we'll use that knowledge that we learn to hack our first machine. It will be a Windows XP machine. We are going to be exploiting the classic vulnerability MS08067. We'll do it with We'll do it manually and also do it with Metasploit. So if you actually want to go ahead and prep for that and look up everything I just said and do your research, please do. That's awesome. If you're able to do that already and get to the meeting, you're going to be able to help out our other club members. But yeah, so that's kind of it. We'll hopefully see you at the next meeting.